This is chapter 16, in which the Bible calls this the second death. Those who are found accursed to God will begin to join Satan to wage war with the angels. With Satan's beast and the false prophet cast into the pool of fire forever, he will still maintain authority over the earthly inhabitants, alive or dead, and have them join him in the final battle for earth. Able to deceive nations with a constant guile, he will now rely on the massive number of his minions, numbered as the sand of the sea. Now, St. John chapter 20, verse 7, and when the 1,000 years are finished, Satan will be released from his prison, will go forth and deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, and will gather them together for the battle, and number of whom is as the sand of the sea. In the prophecy of Ezekiel, this is what he makes clear. Chapter 38 and 39, we learn of Gog and Magog battle. Ezekiel 38, verse 2. Son of man, set the face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Massach and Tubal, the prophecy of him. The ancient serpent made a grave, but he did make a grave and final mistake attacking the camp of the saints. Oh gosh, this was God's beloved city of angels and the final downfall of Satan. So St. John, chapter 20, verse 8, and they went up over the breadth of the earth and encompassed the camp of the saints and the beloved city. St. John 20, verse 9, and the fire from God came down out of heaven and devoured them, and the devil who deceived them was cast in the pool of fire and brimstone, where also are the beast and the false prophet, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now this is God's final and act against Satan, as the need for whom will no longer be available to empower the accursed, and the final judgment will now begin. For those who have chosen to follow God in Christ will now have had their sins expunged in purgatory. Upon judgment, those who will be found worthy will be written in the book of life. The book of life. St. John 20, verse 11. And I saw the great white throne and the one who sat upon it. From his face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, the great and the small, standing before the throne, and scrolls were opened. Another scroll was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of these things that were written in the scrolls, according to their works. St. John 20, verse 13. And the sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and hell gave up the dead that were in them. They were judged each one according to their works. St. John chapter 20, verse 14. And hell and death were cast into the pool of fire. This is the second death, the pool of fire. St. John, verse 20. That's chapter 20, verse 15. And if anyone was found written in the book of life, was not found written in the book of life, he was cast into the pool of fire. With the devil cast in the pool of fire forever, he will cease to exist on an earthly plane, along with those who will now join in the second death. Those who had been worthy to be written in the book of life will finally achieve a spiritual communion with the angels and the highest hierarchy. All indications now point to the second covenant having been violated, and only the worthy will now rise to see the new heaven and earth. Now, St. John, chapter 21, verse 1, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and the sea is no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. St. John, chapter 21, verse 3. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling of God with men, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. St. John 21, verse 4. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. St. John 21, verse 5. And he who was sitting on the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new. And he said, Write, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who thirsts, I will give him the fountain of water of life freely. He will overcome, shall possess these things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. St. John 21, verse 8. But as for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable, and murderers and fornicators and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their portion shall be in the pool that burns with fire and brimstone, which is, incidentally, the second death. Many segments of the apocalypse can be intimidating, which while promises of a rebirth with a new life will come to those attempting to live a chaste life now. As outside influences will come to all of us, there must be a remedy. Confession may be good for the soul unless we will die with sin on the soul. That's where the knowledge of a purgatory aligns itself with preparations toward the second death. During this most tenuous time, as when the end comes, all that have attempted to do right by the Lord and will have paid its restitution and will have waited to arise in the second death and be judged. Those who are to escape the pool of fire will have already been written in the book of life.